Okay, as you know, the first order of business will be for the committee to select its members, its officers for the coming year, and then I will step out, and whoever is selected will run the meeting. So bye-bye. I will put myself invisible and just sit here. Nick, you're muted. I haven't heard you, and
All right,
Jackie.
I'm here.
Okay, there you go. So everybody's ready to go.
Yep,
Um,
I'm here.
okay, take it over. Well, Mark, you're still muted.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, folks. So let's just deal with the election part. We need a president, vice president. Do we have some nominations?
I nominate Mark Schaefer for president.
I
Okay, I
think the word
accept.
is chair.
Chair.
Okay, chair.
Can I be chair instead of president? Well, whatever. All right. I would love to do this and bring this thing home, and which we'll be doing towards the sometime early next year. And I've really enjoyed working with you, and I can hardly wait to introduce you to Jackie.
Yasmina, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you
So
go.
I
You're fine.
want to second Mark's nomination. I'm sorry, I thought I didn't see that I was muted. But also I'm wondering, do we know if Elizabeth is joining us today?
I have not heard that she is not. Oh, here she comes.
Oh, great.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, Elizabeth, you should, I don't see you. I just did. Okay, here she
There
is.
she is.
And Elizabeth, you are muted. You could unmute yourself. There you go. Okay, everyone's set to go. We have full committee here.
Great.
Perfect. Elizabeth, we were in the middle of electing our two officers. I've been nominated, seconded. So we're waiting for other nominations.
You'll need a vice chair and a secretary.
I nominate Nick to be vice chair. Second?
Happy to second it.
Okay.
Somebody taking notes of this, by the way? I'm sorry. We need to.
I
Do a
think the
minute.
meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
All right. Any other nominations? Well, I guess all in favor of this slate.
Well, wait a second. Do you need a secretary? 'Cause I hadn't heard that yet.
Oh, that's right. So, we've been sort of handing that job around. Who wants that job?
I'd like to suggest that we do, only because I think it makes it a little bit more organized for, documentation and meetings and everybody getting the same and reporting back to the council. Particular.
Well, I would prefer a volunteer. I think that Elizabeth and Yasmina and Jackie are the people who have not been nominated for anything yet. What do you guys think?
I would like to nominate, if there are no volunteers. I'm already a secretary for the elections committee, so I have quite a bit to do for that. So I'd like to decline the nomination. That leaves it between Yasmina and.
That's a prophylactic declining. Okay.
I think given that we only have a few months and we did really well in the last year by just sharing the tasks, I like to continue with that informal structure rather than having a really formal structure. But anyway, that would be my preference.
I'm comfortable with that. It worked fine last year. Does anybody have an objection? Okay. So there we are. We're going to rotate the secretary position from meeting to meeting. But we still have to vote on Nick and me, but nobody else is running. So is it unanimous?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Nick, now you're in trouble. I don't see community members. Arthur, do we have community members?
Yes, we do. We have
Oh.
Marty Langolin and Doug and Hiromi.
And
Oh,
Alexa-
great.
Doug Grove. I presume it's Doug Grove.
And
That's
Alexa
great.
as well.
But
That's great.
Yes, you
So,
presume correctly, thanks.
but
So now we call to order. So let's get to introducing Jackie. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jackie Roberts yesterday afternoon and found out why Arthur was so excited she was joining us. Jackie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Okay, all right. I'll keep it brief. I have been doing environmental science most of my career. I started as a chemical engineering, although more of my expertise was around waste, air pollution, recycling type issues. You touch on water issues all the time. My first job was cleaning up a major Superfund site, and it was
Wow.
New Bedford Harbor, and it was all water issues and stormwater and other stuff was part of that too. I spent about 20 years working at Environmental Defense Fund on a whole variety of issues, including quite a lot on climate and what climate is going to be bringing us in terms of stormwater, severe weather events, and severe heat, which are all issues that Martin's Additions will face, as well as the rest of the country. I have worked quite a bit in the private sector. I do corporate boards now. I'm also on some nonprofit boards, including a coalition called the Smart Surfaces Coalition, which is a group of major entities, everybody from the American Public Health Association to Green Building Leaders to World Resources Institute, the Harvard School of Public Health, all focused on how surfaces can really address what's coming in terms of severe heat and severe flooding to communities. And those surfaces do include roofs, but they also include pavements, sidewalks, what's happening in yards, what's happening in public spaces. And the coalition is really trying to advance a set of strategies and has developed very detailed modeling to be able to show what those strategies can do in terms of reducing the most severe effects from increased heat and flooding. So that is kind of a general background. I also have a master's in environmental studies and just feel like this is something that's going to affect all of our community. So I'm really glad to join the committee and be able to maybe make some connections to what other communities are doing and where there's expertise that we can tap into.
Anybody have any questions of Jackie?
yeah, what took you so long to join this committee?
Well, I wasn't aware of it. Well, first, I was
Oh.
working full time. I worked for about 6 years for the Carlyle Group, and that was kind of nutty. And 3 kids, and now as everybody's launching, and I have a little more time, and
Okay,
I'm not
well, glad to have you.
working
Okay.
full time. I'm glad to be able to do things like this. That's one of the reasons I switched from full time work to boards.
I understand. I would just share that yesterday Jackie made a big point about long term, and she touched on it now, and I think that that's probably a conversation between Jackie and Megan, but Jackie wants us to be doing things that will be effective 50 years from now. Did I get that right?
Well, yes. I mean, I think as we're planning, there is new data, and it's, communities have always planned based on historical data that doesn't work anymore. And the data for what to expect over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years has gotten very sophisticated in terms of the modeling. And we need to be aware of that. So our strategies really are future-proofing us as much as anything.
Okay. I think that you made a point yesterday in our conversation about the county's stormwater controls that were out of date based upon old data. Could you say that more accurately than what I'm saying?
Oh, I mean, I probably just use that as an example of often stormwater plans
Mhm.
you know, it's discovered that they're out of date because, again, they were based on historical data of what to expect. And clearly there is publicly available information about how 1 in 100 flood events now are happening 1 in 20 years. And those types of data points to plan around are changing fast, but there is the ability, I think, for communities to get some of that data and think about it.
You can access that for us and obviously share it with Megan because she'll be the first one of us to have any idea what the heck you're talking about.
Right, right. Well,
Right.
and I assume, Megan, you're from Bayland?
Yes.
Yes, I think Bayland, I've looked at your website. I think you're very familiar with all this data, so I'm excited to
Yeah,
talk through
our
it. But
model, yeah, our model does account for climate change. We use the Marissa Rand factors.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that website. So we have an existing and a future model.
yeah,
And also the
Right.
state is in the process of updating their stormwater regulations to have new mandates that the counties will then have to implement. So
Yeah.
that's an ongoing process.
yeah.
Right.
So I think we're well covered, but it is an important area to think about.
Well, it sounds like we were doing a great job and now we're going to do even a little bit better. Thank you. Okay, team, the summary of the work to date, you guys want me to do that like in like 1 minute Shakespeare? Does anybody know what 1 minute Shakespeare is?
Mhm.
There's an acting
Yeah.
group that does Shakespeare plays in 1 minute.
Oh,
So
Oh,
we've
thanks.
been, we were, Arthur drafted our scope of work in 2020, mid 2023. I think that's when we started. We educated ourselves fairly well. Clark Azar was helpful in that. And then we started collecting documents internally and externally, talking with some of the other villages, and just getting to the point where if somebody wanted to explain stormwater management to us, we'd understand a quarter of what they were saying. My joke. So then we had some, we brought in a lecturer and for us and for the council. And then we started to get to work with a survey, which was completed and wait a minute. Yeah, it was completed. Then we realized that it was time to hire an engineer, and the council was generous enough to agree with that. And a group of us reviewed I drafted an RFP with Arthur's help. Then we got 3 proposals and we picked the best. And Bayland was the best by far. So then we went forward to walk the town a couple of times, collecting other data, and then on her side of the line, Megan has been doing a whole bunch of work that we won't understand till she explains it to us, but I think Jackie will. So that's where we are. What I'd like to do is 2 things. I'd like Megan to update the residents who are listening tonight on where we are. She and I batted back and forth a schedule going forward. She can present it or I can like help her. And then I think that it would be useful to talk very briefly about a few of the things we're learning from the village managers who we've spoken to in the last month or 2. And by the way, today, Ms. Long from Section 3 called me and is ready to be interviewed. So I'll take care of that next week and then throw it in the hopper with the other interviews. But the one thing I've seen by reading all of the interviews everybody else did is people may be going at this differently or being in different states of development, but they're all pretty much talking about the same problems and same concerns. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like each of the people who did one of the interviews to present the summary. I mean, I read them and I could probably do it, but I won't do as good a job as the person who actually did the summary. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that backwards. I'd like, first of all, I'd like Megan to provide the
Mhm.
status update.
Yeah, I did have a markup of one of the slides from the last community meeting, but I'm not able to share my screen. Arthur, is that something you can
Oh,
try and
yeah,
fix?
let me, hold on. Let me, share the screen. Where, under what menu command is share the screen? I'm looking chat right hand
If you
host.
go to the bottom, you have to sort of get your cursor to the bottom of the Zoom screen.
Yeah.
And you should see a share.
Um, oh yeah, there, okay, hold on. Share, host only, no. Okay. I'm
So
putting
if you
on,
disable the screen sharing, then Megan, you can share your
I
screen,
got it.
right?
I got all participants. Who can share? All participants. Okay, I believe you can share now.
I can, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yay.
Right. Good
So
job.
at the end of the last public meeting, I had this next step slide. So I just wanted to update where we are with that. We went ahead and calibrated our hydrologic and hydraulic model based on some of the feedback we received. And then based on the model, the feedback we've received from the community, and some surveys that were completed, we worked with the task force to identify the top 10 problematic areas. So now we are moving forward with developing solutions and then prioritizing the areas and the solutions for those 10 areas. The 10 areas were primarily picked based on either the number of residents or area of roadway that are affected by flooding. And those will be documented in the draft report. So then by November, we'll have the solutions and prioritization completed. Concurrently, we're working on recommendations to the village ordinances, and we had a separate meeting with the task force and another member of my team that worked with the town of Somerset in developing some ordinance recommendations for that town. So that will be included in the draft report. So then this comprehensive draft report that documents all the work we completed, starting from field investigations, our modeling, how we came up with these 10 areas, the solutions, prioritization, and what ranking factors we use will all be in this report that we will then submit to the task force in November. The task force will then have a month to review that. We'll meet with them, incorporate any of their feedback. So that should be wrapping up around the end of December. And then that puts us at coming back in January, presenting the draft report to the community. And then we'll incorporate any changes based on that community meeting. And then we'll finalize the report and be prepared to present it to the council.
Sounds about right. Anybody have any concerns about that schedule? Anybody on the task force?
So when would be, you think would be the meeting to present to the council then? Would that be the December meeting?
No.
Probably if we're meeting with the community in January, I
Oh,
don't
I
know
see.
what, I don't know when they,
January. Oh, yeah, okay.
we could, turn things around pretty quickly. I don't know when the council typically meets. So if we can't get in towards the end of January, we'd be looking at sometime in February.
They
Yeah,
meet every
the-
month on the second.
Yeah,
what
the
is it?
council meets the third Thursday of the
Third.
month, so this would be probably before Christmas in December.
Well, we're going to meet
I
with the
think that-
community first in December, and
So the
then
community first, okay.
Wait a minute.
yes,
You're meeting with us when?
well, the
Tuesday?
task force, yeah.
Well, the task force is a different meeting than the community meeting. There's actually 3 meetings.
So
There's
task
the-
force,
The
community.
task force meeting is an administrative meeting where we just review the report and share thoughts and ideas, and you finish your work. Then when you're finished with that, we have the community meeting probably in early January, and then as soon as you can produce a final report based upon the community meeting, and the task force is comfortable with that, then we schedule the public meeting with the council. So it's late January or February, I think. Does anybody disagree with that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it sounds like the end date for presenting the report to the council would be the third week of January. Since
Or,
that's when the
or
council-
February,
or the third week of February if we push it back.
right?
If the
Yeah,
third,
that doesn't mean we won't share it with the council before then, or it doesn't mean we won't publish it before then. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be delivered as soon as possible, even if the council can't hold a meeting for another couple of weeks. It just gives people more time to digest it.
Mhm.
and I'm fine with that. I just want to know, I can look at a calendar, but I am out of town the Thursday of Martin Luther King weekend. I don't know if that's the third Thursday or not.
We'll work around it.
Okay. Just
All right.
putting that out there now.
Yeah, you should.
I also have a question. If you're still gathering community feedback in January, does that mean that your report is still in draft form until that
Yes.
final community meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold
If
on,
you
I
think of,
wonder if we could clarify, because I think there's a little bit of confusion here, at least I'm confused.
please,
I just want to clarify that the community meeting is not the same as presenting the final product to the council in a council meeting.
that's
Um,
correct.
Okay, so any community feedback would be received prior to presenting the final product to the council.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
the council would get a report that reflects the community feedback
Mhm.
and how Megan reacted to it, and to some
Mhm.
extent how we reacted to it.
So the only question I have here is, anytime I've worked on these kinds of processes, it's the
Mhm.
potential solutions. What is the full array of potential solutions that was considered? What's the long list? How did you get to a short list?
Mhm.
And that often can get a lot of community feedback. So
Mm-hmm.
going immediately to updates to the ordinances, it seems like those have to be sequential. I mean, we have to kind of know from the long list of potential solutions, which ones we think are the most cost effective we want to focus on before we then turn to translating those into actual ordinances, correct?
Yes, I think what we planned on doing is making a recommendation for certain types of ordinances, dealing with certain types of issues in certain ways, but it wouldn't be a drafting, it would be a recommendation. So there's room for it to evolve.
Okay.
We did talk about, and we might still talk about, a quick and dirty temporary ordinance. And I actually saw one in one of the villages. Maybe somebody will talk about that in a few minutes. It seemed to basically cover. Basically, there had to be a water flow plan with any development, and a development applies to any structure that's more than 144 square feet. And then there also had to be a stormwater management plan that assured that no water would flow that would be harmful to neighbors or the community. And what harmful wasn't defined, but that's a different issue. That was a lawyer joke. And then there could be an engineer brought in to review what the developer presented. In fact, you could require the developer present an engineer report, and then we could, if needed, hire our own engineer to vet it. So those are sort of the concepts that we've been playing with. The ordinance thing is definitely going to evolve, but some of us have been talking about trying to give the council a quick and dirty temporary option, just so we are no longer behind the curve on this stuff. I mean, we've got houses for sale here and there, and if the developers can get to them before we do something,
Yeah.
we all know they're going to clear cut.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree for new development, it would be great to put in a checkpoint.
Oh, okay.
And then, which you've just described. I mean, that could be the kind of ordinance. I think a lot of our solutions will end up being on existing property too.
I agree.
So, that combination.
Right. There's a number of components that we've been talking about, and it would be great just to like have a coffee and just not make any decisions, but just make sure everybody's aware of what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so I'll try to sell that. And I have a feeling you and Megan are going to become best friends. But in any event, so does anybody have any questions about our schedule? All right, so that's our schedule. Now,
think I
What?
do,
I'm
Mark.
please, go ahead.
I think it'd be really helpful because we keep pushing the schedule back.
Yep.
I think we did have a certain schedule before we started the summer, and we're now
Mhm.
talking about pushing it back 3,
Yep.
maybe 4 months,
Yep.
actually 5 months. And we know this task force has a definite end, right? Because it's only been renewed for half a year. So I think it'd be really helpful if we could set like a week for submission of the draft report, a date for the meeting, when we're going to reconvene to have any discussion about that report,
Mhm.
and a date for the community meeting, and then get on the
Mhm.
schedule now for, it sounds like the council meeting at the end of January will not work because of the Martin Luther King holiday, but maybe let's get on the schedule for the February council meeting so that we know that we're moving ahead. I think that
Why
would.
don't we start backwards? Let's say that can we all agree that the council meeting presentation will be no later than the February regular council meeting, and we'll work backwards from there.
Right.
All right.
So
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, so I think we have a agreement. Then the process then becomes, I think, negotiating with Megan
right,
because she's going to be doing the heavy lifting. And so I think that I'd like our task force to have at least, I'd like us to have a month, but I'd like us to have at least no less than 2 weeks to review Megan's first draft and sit down with her and then sit down for comments. I think 2 weeks is the minimum. I think a month is really more appropriate. And then I'd like to do the same thing for the residents after Megan produces the next draft for discussion. So that's already eaten up 2 months during this period.
Mhm.
So what do you think about what I just said?
The most valuable time is going to be for the residents to react to the report. So really to put a good amount of time in there. The residents might even, request a follow-up discussion. We don't know at this point. So really factoring that in and factoring in the holidays as well, which makes it a bit more complicated. I wonder, Megan, do you want to suggest a schedule that would
Yes.
on your end and come back to us and we can decide on that administratively, since that seems like an administrative function that we could follow up on by email and then communicate it in one of the communications to the village so everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah, so I can put
Do you
this in
have
writing.
one now?
That's what I can verbally kind of tell you
Do
what
it.
I'm thinking.
I gotta look at the
If we get
calendar.
you the report by Friday, November 21st, then we could meet sometime by the 19th. So that way, I don't know if people are traveling the early part of the week of Christmas. So the week of December 15th through the 19th, we could then meet with the task force to go over that. And then we could plan on the public meeting being, sometime in mid-January, and we can set a date. And then the task force meeting looks like it would maybe be February, or the council meeting would then maybe be February 20th is the third Thursday in February. Or wait, the
All right,
9th.
could you say that
The
again?
19th.
Because I was thinking instead of listening. I apologize. The first thing, the date was November something.
Friday, November 21st, draft report submitted to the task force.
Okay. Then we would have some time to look at it, and then you're proposing sometime in mid-December for us to meet?
The week of the 15th,
right.
15th through 19th, because then the following week, Christmas falls, mid-end of week.
Yeah, I've got to see if I'm in the country that week. Hold on a minute. And then Um,
And then pick a
Vic?
date mid-January. You know,
go ahead and
well,
pick one.
well, if I'm gone the 15th, 13th or 14th, or the 20th or the 21st, because it looks like the council meeting would be the 19th of February. So, you know, if we go at least a month before that to meet with the community.
So a date around,
13.
Either the week of the 12th or the 19th, like the 13th or the 14th or the 20th or the 21st.
13th, 14th, or 21st week. Okay, can you all hang on, because I want to see if I'm in the country December, that week in December, because I don't remember, but I know I'm taking my kids to Mexico at some point around then. Hold on.
Megan, do you need this slide up still, or can
No,
I
I can stop
sharing?
sharing. I can stop sharing.
Okay, okay, there we go.
Hey, Megan.
Mhm.
While Mark is checking his calendar, I was wondering if you could share some of the feedback that you received that led to the recalibration of, if you can quickly remind us of the feedback that you received that helped you recalibrate the model.
We just went back and looked at some of the surveys of people complaining about flooding, and then in the public meeting, one or two residents pointed out some areas, so we went and looked at that as well.
Thanks.
And Megan, in the survey, did people provide feedback on basement flooding or more outdoor flooding?
Some people did. Some people said yard, some people said basement. So we had a map where we color coded what type of flooding they complained about, or what kind of water impact they complained about.
And one other
Yeah.
question I had is, there were some historical drainage. For example, when we first moved in, there was a stream between Raymond and, oh my God.
Yes, we went and pulled some historical topo maps
Okay.
from
Because a lot
Soil
of development
Survey.
has filled that in, and I think that's really prevented some of the natural.
And that's, you know, that's the worst flooded areas, is where that natural stream became piped.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
All right, just have we gotten you plugged, Jackie, have we gotten you plugged into our files? Yeah.
I don't think
All
yet.
right. I promise I will send you that information after this meeting. And Megan has produced charts of all of this.
Great.
Okay. So anyways, guys, I'm sure you're gonna be glad that you elected me president. I am out of town for most of the week of December the 15th and the following week. And I don't come back until like the first week in January.
So we could plan on meeting the week of the 8th. It just gives you guys a little less time to review the report. And I can try and get it submitted sooner, but
Mm.
So how long would that give us to digest it?
you would have we could plan on meeting towards the end of the week of the 8th, and then you would have
Sure.
about 2.5 weeks, but Thanksgiving is in there. So I don't know.
In December, so it's like December 11th for us to meet.
I'm actually at a board meeting the 10th, 11th, 12th. I have to be out of town at a board meeting.
December.
December, yeah, it's end of quarter board meetings.
So the
this-
10th.
What about the 8th?
Or the 9th.
Yeah, the
everyone-
8th or the 9th look okay. I don't know if I have to fly out on the 9th. The 8th is safer. I don't yet know what time we're starting on the 10th, so sometimes I have to fly in the night before.
Mhm.
All right, so Megan, if you could somehow squeeze a few extra days in there for us, that would be great. Just do your best. It'll be what it is.
Okay.
And
And I will
during
try and
Thanksgiving,
find out. I can find out tomorrow what time, whether the 9th is a possibility, if that's better to have an extra day for folks.
well,
We're
I
doing it
think
on
it'd be better
Tuesday.
for Megan, Jackie.
Yeah.
The rest of us can deal with it. She's doing the heavy lifting again. And then I don't care if I'll be with family over Thanksgiving, but I don't care if I'm reading a report draft during that time period. It'll be fine.
All right. I have a appointment on the 8th. I'm trying to figure out. I only said appointment. I don't say what it is. So I'm trying to figure out how long it's going to last.
Yeah,
I should be fine for later in the evening.
yeah.
Oh, I see. I do. Okay, I know what it is now. Yeah, I'd be fine for like a 5 or 6 o'clock meeting on the 8th.
All right.
Um,
Okay. Does anybody have any preference for the time of that meeting on the 8th?
Yeah, I am unavailable from 7 o'clock, so if we could meet before that, that would be really helpful for me.
Is this a good time for everyone? It seems to be.
Could we meet at
What-
5? I'm just worried if my appointment runs late. I might not get home
Okay.
till closer to 4:30, and that just gives me a little bit of time to get logged on.
Yasmina, do you have to leave to go someplace for a 7 o'clock meeting, or you could be at home?
I can be at home.
Okay, so then we would have 2 hours of work. That's pretty good. We'll have to be very efficient.
So 5 to 7 on December 8th is what you were
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
And if something happens with somebody's schedule, we'll deal with it. But that's where we are right now. And Yasmina, do you think we should also pick a date for the public meeting in January?
I think, yes, we should, and maybe that's something we should do with Michael, because he has the village.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if we could just put that in the parking for now and deal with that by email with Michael.
Okay, I'll do
We're
that.
suggesting sometime around, we said 13 or 14, Megan was saying.
Just there's 2 weeks in January. I mean, we could do the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the week of the 12th. We could do 12th, 13th, or 14th. I think the 19th is MLK. So then I don't want to commit to the 20th yet. So 12th, 13th, 14th, or 21st.
Or
Okay,
20.
12, 13, 14, or 21. All right, I'll share those with Michael and see where he's at, because he's always recording somebody's meeting or.
Okay.
Okay,
And just let me know as soon as you decide so I can block my calendar.
yeah, I'm gonna call him tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. And- Okay, so I think we covered that. Do you guys want to spend maybe just a few minutes on the interviews you did with village managers, just so that we can look for commonalities?
Okay.
While you're getting your heads together, I already drafted my notes. So I'll just start off first, and you guys can get ready. So I met with Kelly Mitch and her Section 3 and their code and compliance consultant Paul Gaise, Gaise, and I'm just going to tell you the things that were like standout points. I'm not going to get into all the weeds. Their biggest problem is heavy rain swamped their residential yards. We have some of that. They see the problems exacerbated by more, they called it paved, but what they meant is non-porous residential land. And the increased number of teardowns and all have had a different effect. They described it as increasing water flow everywhere. The speed of the water is what they noticed. That doesn't mean it isn't a volume, but they're aware of the speed. Their pipes are inadequate. They're 8 to 12 inches. They've talked to the county, but the county says we don't have any money. Their code requires, I think this would be an interesting thing for everybody to look at. And I think I attached it to my notes, but if I didn't, I will get it out today. They require stormwater dealt with as part of the permitting process.
Hmm.
The permitting process applies to any structure that footprint of 144 square feet or larger. The applicant must file a drainage plan with current and proposed topographical contours before and after construction. And this, by the way, all this includes highway driveways and patios.
Wait, Mark, again, what community is this?
Section 3.
Okay, got it.
Then the building inspector can require a consultant, a civil engineer consultation. That's a little different from what we've been talking about. We've been talking about the builder bringing in the first engineer, and then we would bring up a following engineer. In addition to the drainage plan, that you have to submit a stormwater management plan, which demonstrates that stormwater runoff will not adversely affect any adjacent property. Streets, public sidewalks, right-of-ways, anything. And then again, they haven't done anything about trees. They know they have to, and they're trying to figure out what to do in their code. But right now they're just negotiating with builders not to take down trees, a tree at a time. So that's those guys. I think it all resonates with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a clarifying question? Because when I look at construction projects, they all
Yeah.
seem to put up temporary stormwater buffers and other things that temporarily manage stormwater
Yeah, but that's silt control. That's what that's about.
and silt control. So all of these
Yeah.
ordinances, when they say no adverse impact, are they specifying a time frame for that over the next 5 years, over the next year? Like what? Because that's kind of an important nuance.
Well, you're right, and they didn't. They also
Okay.
didn't define adverse impact. So those are things we would have to deal with.
Yeah.
Typically, you want to show that you're not changing the drainage patterns on an adjacent property. So you're not going to be
Right.
changing the volume of water they currently see.
Right. And that's, yeah, and so some engineers know how to do that, right? Megan?
They should, but there's also, I've seen the plans that have been approved by the county for Village of Martin's addition that Michael have shared, and some of them, I can look at it and see that it's going to be changing, but it's may not be clear to a county reviewer because they're not all engineers.
Well,
They just
we
have
could
kind
deal
of
with-
that's
Go
where
ahead.
that's where Chris had recommended when we met that you, in your building ordinance, you quantify what requires stormwater management review by the village.
Mhm.
So the state mandate, and therefore the county, it's if you disturb 5,000 square feet of land, or you're going to be creating 100 cubic yards of cut or fill. So you can create a more stringent requirement and say,
Mhm.
like, if you're going to build a patio that's greater than what the one the one community was 144 square feet, then
Mhm.
the village is going to require that you have to meet stormwater management per the state code. So
Mhm.
that way, then they would have to get a plan prepared. And you would not issue then your building permit until they provide you that stormwater plan. And if you have an engineer, then you can, have them review and approve it. That's what Chris did for the town. And where the town of Somerset what they didn't do was they didn't work in that fee is passed along to the developer. So then the town was paying Chris and
Yeah.
Balian to review the plan, and it got very expensive.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's an
I don't see
important thing
anything
for us to
wrong.
do.
So that's the thing. Yeah, you want to, those review fee, there's a standard review fee where, whatever engineer you hire, they'll have their set fee where they're going to anticipate maybe 4 hours to review a package. Their set fee for that review is maybe $1,200. And that gets passed on to the developer, has to pay that review fee.
Absolutely. They pay both sides, their side to present and our side to review.
But we're,
And how often do you think the council, that the Somerset engineer was overturning or objecting to what the county had just kind of rubber stamped?
some of the plans went through 4 or 5 reviews because they just were not providing what was necessary.
Yeah. So it's worth doing because the county is not really doing the kind of close analysis we need.
Or they,
Yeah.
one of the plans I was looking at, a PE, which is the runoff volume you have to treat of like 1.4 was required. They were only meeting 0.8 and then they were paying a fee in lieu.
Yeah,
They
but
were
we're not
paying
gonna have
a-
fee in lieu.
Oh.
Yeah, you'll say
the
you-
county's
yeah.
big on fee and lieu's.
I mean, you
Right.
have to always work in that, a variance could be applied for, but then it's up to the town or the village to, for them to really show that it's not going to adversely impact if you want to approve a variance.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna have a
Megan,
lot of trouble with a fee in lieu.
Megan, the
But
plans
we'll
that
get
were
there.
rejected by the engineer review were plans coming from developer or plans coming from individuals who are working with a, small contractor or a landscaper?
I know just one of them that Chris had me look at. It was a developer. It was like a new lot development.
Yeah.
Do you think, Megan, it would be possible to look at, or maybe the folks here who interviewed the Somerset people, to get a look at that flow of documents with the 4 rejections, so we can get a feel for what we would want to recommend to our council, that the protections against that, or the controls of that process?
Well, I mean, I would say that's on the owner and developer. If, there's a standard set of requirements in the state regulations, if they're not meeting that in their first submittal, it's going to cost them money because somebody's going to review it. They're going to say, you're not showing this, and this, send it back. Then they're supposed to address the comments, resubmit. If they don't adequately resubmit or adequately address the comments, once again, that's on the owner and developer.
Mhm.
Okay,
And I handled Somerset. Let me just chime in, Mark, real quick, that
please.
the understanding I had with Balin was that because the town of Somerset was incurring this expense, it was expensive, and they opted to modify the contract to manage on a case-by-case basis and come to Balin on situations where they didn't reach a resolve, where it was more complicated and they felt that it could be at the level of Balin, so that they may mitigate a couple of those exchanges and not have charges for each one of them, and then go to Balin with a full packet and the resident paying and the contractor paying. So that was a change that I know there had been some discussions about the relationship with Balin. That's how I understand it works now, that they use them on a case-by-case basis.
Well, I think we'll have to talk that through. It's a skill set to be able to understand what the standards are.
Yeah.
I hear you talking about the state. I don't know if the state meets all of our needs or not. I'm not saying it doesn't, or there are other things that we'd want to add on top of that. So we're going to have to really better study this in order to know, to make a recommendation.
So what Chris was saying is town of Somerset, I don't believe, has their own stormwater ordinance because that requires a back and forth with the state. You have to show all of these various qualifications. So what a lot of towns do is they just change what kicks the stormwater requirement that the state lists. And so that's where you just say, if you're going to be disturbing this amount of area or proposing this amount of impervious area, you have to meet the stormwater management requirements mandated by the state.
I understand that. I read one of the, who else wants to talk about their interviews? Because I read another one that where there was a requirement.
It might have
Well, I
been,
read it to you before. There's no increase in off flow of discharge, and in fact, they had a backup, which was the language that would go into the public records, the deed, so that the duty would pass to new owners.
yeah, that was the report I sent on Chevy Chase Village.
Yes, could we talk
And
about that, please?
Yeah, well, okay, just a quick, using your little suggestion, the topography is very similar to ours. It's, there are lots of hills and sort of upstream, downstream issues. The primary problems that were identified that they were going to address were to alleviate flooding in residents' homes, to alleviate flooding on roadways adjacent to residential properties, and to alleviate erosion in rights-of-way and parkland areas. And so they formed a stormwater committee in 2023. And I included the
Okay.
report, which I thought was excellent. It was a very,
Yeah.
very comprehensive report. It covered everything. And in that, they identified a couple of gray infrastructure problems that they have now addressed. They're already finished or they're finishing. One was a municipal storm drain project. And the idea here was an up and down vertical going down the hill from top to bottom, running a drain through the backs of people's properties. And the big issue was that required cutting down trees or taking out sheds or whatever that might have been on the backs of people's properties. And the residents at the top of the hill didn't see the benefit because they weren't experiencing the flooding. So in the end, the compromise was to start the drain halfway down the hill, which I thought was very creative, where the problems started to consolidate with flooding. So they ran, starting halfway down, they put their drain in, and of course this involved interaction with the county. And what I understand is the county doesn't have any money for storm drains, but if the community finances it, you can go ahead and do it. And then you need to get the county involved when you do the hookup to the county storm drain, basically at that moment. But so that was financed totally by the Chevy Chase Village put in about $1.5 million so far on gray and green infrastructure. And the second one was a trench drain project along this was to alleviate flooding that was going into the street onto a road service. Green infrastructure, a couple of projects there to rehabilitate a green space that was degraded because of stormwater runoff. And that involved regrading, new landscaping, etc. So they have a, it seems that after this has happened, they looked at all those recommendations. There were 8 recommendations in the report, but they seem to be focusing primarily on code changes. And it is with their lawyers right now because they don't have the final word. However, they have a pretty good ordinance in place. So I also gave you the link to that, where they have useful text both under section 8.6, which is building permit issuance and conditions. 8.16, which is private property regulations, residential building construction prohibitions. And then the most important one is section 8.25, which is alteration of water flow or drainage. And regarding permits being required and adverse effects, this kind of language you were just talking about. And it's quite complete already. It seems to me what the effort is trying to do is to put more teeth into what they have, so that they talk about something being objective rather than subjective. Subjective meaning at the discretion of the village manager, right? So that it more is linked to, like you said, the size of the property, rather than whether, you know, there's some kind of workaround. So the committee recommended a pre-permit drainage review before the construction development. Applicant actually gets their permit from the county. Establishing an objective threshold for requiring drainage stormwater management plan. And then requiring maintenance agreements. This would be, for example, residents that have dry wells on their property, but they are not being taken care of. They're not being maintained. And therefore they're causing a problem for neighbors on either side. So they're actually talking about putting into this, if you buy a piece of property and there's a dry well on it, it's going to go into the title of the deed that there is a dry well, and that there will be the responsibility linked to the owner right there to maintain that. And there'll be periodic, you know, visits or, inspections, let's say, to make sure that the owners are doing that. So I thought that was interesting. And in terms of major obstacles and challenges, the applicant compliance for construction, development, permitting, and conflicts with residents, the usual what you would expect here, and that had slowed down. Like I asked her, I said, why did it take 5 years to do your storm drain project? And then, and then she was saying all of these different back and forth discussions, the uphill, downhill issues, etc. And also interaction with the county. So they have a civil engineer that's on contract with them. Put the name of the company in there. Can't find it at the moment. And they were,
Good, sir.
yeah, RK&K was the first one. Rummel, Klepper, and Call. They were really pleased. They were the first ones that worked with them. Now they've got another one, Anchor Construction. They said that the problem there is it's hard to get the guy, right? It's hard to get his attention. She thinks they may be overcommitted. Nevertheless, this person, the civil engineer, is an on-call contract position covering civil and traffic engineering services, and they review private property development applications for compliance with stormwater regulations, and they consult on public stormwater management projects, including project design work. So and they also have something called a full-time permitting and code enforcement coordinator. So they and the civil engineer review all building permit applications with stormwater management provisions. So I think that the other thing was in terms of budgeting and future projects, the decision was not to set aside money for stormwater issues now that they've completed the most, the ones that were in the public rights of way and all of that, the ones that immediately presented themselves, but more of a wait and see and dealing with issues as they arise on a case-by-case basis. So that was the feeling I got, that they're waiting for the outcome of the review of the ordinance, and the updating of those existing provisions, and then and their committee was disbanded. They will not be, doing any of their big projects in the near future. The other thing is about trees. They also have a tree, what do they call it here?
A tree ordinance.
Yeah, tree ordinance committee. And there were two things. There was a board. Let's see, where did I put it? Here. The Urban Forest Ordinance. That has been in place for decades, and that is useful to prevent tree clearing for the purposes of development. So there's a whole chapter 17 urban forest in their code on that. They also have a tree ordinance board, which is a body of volunteer residents appointed by the Board of Managers. And all trees proposed for removal that exceed 24 inches in circumference must be assessed by the village arborist for compliance with the removal criteria in the forest ordinance. So, and they have a tree preservation plan also. So I think this would be, they've done a lot, and they have a lot of different groups, many of which are volunteer here that are working on this. So I think this would provide some useful references for us in, dealing with very similar issues. They're also interested in collaborating. They said the only thing they wouldn't share was their civil engineer. But they'd be happy to, talk about joint work on other infrastructure projects, to, certainly collaborate, talk, discuss what they're doing, and also collaborative education campaigns. They would be happy to talk with us and work with us on that. That was basically it.
Yeah. Any questions from Elizabeth? Elizabeth, I thought that was, you wrote a great summary. It's very helpful.
Oh, thanks. The manager is very nice there. I spoke with Shayna Davis Cook, the village manager, and she herself is involved. I mean, she's the one who reviews the building permits, actually. She gives the sign off on those. But so she was very informed, and she's also open, you know what I'm saying? She was generous with her time and open to discussing. So I think if we need to go back and ask for follow-up on a clarification, or even to see how their lawyers are doing on their ordinances, you know, to get copies of the final drafts. we
Yeah.
could-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that's probably going to come out of this, and I'm sort of talking to Arthur now,
Yeah.
is the workload that will be involved in taking the town from this report to wherever it's going.
Yeah,
It's
let
gonna be
me,
it's gonna be a
I'll
lot
even
of
put my
work.
camera on for this. Make a suggestion of coming up with a range of recommendations. One being a minimalist. What could we do quickly, immediately with the minimum infrastructure? And what I'm thinking about that there is something like permeable surfaces.
Mhm.
It would be relatively simple to amend the code to control the percentage or square foot of required permeable surfaces or the permissible impermeable surfaces. That doesn't require hiring engineers, specialists, changing it would be like a one sentence change to the building code. Uh, and what I'm looking for here is the simplest change that gives, you know, the biggest bang for the buck. Um, Before we get into the 5-year projects, what could we do in a short time? If there is such a thing, there may not be such a thing, but one of the thing that I keep coming back to is permeable surface, and we right now we regulate permeable surface in the front yard, and that's for aesthetic purposes, not for any other purposes. So if we could come up with something along those lines that would give us some reward for relatively small cost, small expense, and small administrative burden. So think along those lines. Megan, any help you could give there, and any of the experiences we have from our adjoining communities would be very helpful. Yasmina.
Yeah, Arthur, I think that's exactly right. But I think we keep coming back to this question of what can we do in terms of our ordinances, because it's what we see. So it is really important to come up with a recommendation, a short-term recommendation for the Code of Ordinances to address immediate development. But I think we also need to have at the same time our strategies that are going to be focused on the medium term and long term changes that need to take place. Some of that, and I think that was really the feedback that we got from our meetings, including the meeting that you participated on with Chevy Chase View, is, you know, we have municipalities that all focus on the same problem, and they're addressing it in different ways, and they're really eager for this collaboration to happen at the municipal level. So I think we need to figure that out, is how do we get these municipalities together to work together on some of the challenges they're experiencing, like Chevy Chase View, which is, you know, paying for its own stormwater drainage pipes and then can't put them in because they can't get the permits from the utilities to put their pipes in. And then those pipes don't hook up to the municipal storm drainage pipes. They're too small for what we need for the future. So there's a certain amount, you know, what they were talking to us about was the lobbying effort that needs to happen, you know, amongst the municipalities, working with the council, with the county council, to come up with solutions and to align, you know, county stand lines on what's required by the state for the MS4 permit. So, you know, these are things that can happen in parallel. And I think that as we're developing these recommendations, we need to be mindful of what can happen immediate that will have an immediate bang for a buck in terms of, you know, addressing these developer issues. But then what's going to help position our community for the future, and, you know, that we can't delay for 3 years because we're focused on ordinances right now.
Right. Well,
Okay. And
I don't like waiting for 5 years before things happen. So anything that we can start off immediately. I've waited long enough for the Brookville sidewalks to get in. So anything we can start off doing that would be helpful, that would start addressing the problems, and then the other things will come along.
Yeah, and I'm all about the ordinances, having having experienced what we've experienced at the back of our property.
Right. Go ahead.
I was
Elizabeth.
just gonna say in response to Art's comment to, sort of keep it simple and do something immediate, but that, as Megan pointed out, you're gonna have, the recommendations will be both sort of the grayscape type with storm drain system upgrades and outfall channels. And then, I mean, in other words, dealing with the water that's there, the water that will be here, for sure, to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And the other part is the development. The other part of the story is how do you control the development and put more, protections into that permitting process. And so there are really two major prongs here. And then of course there's the trees. So all of those will have different costs, different, designs and timelines, but they're both, at least those first two are, it seems to me, are urgent in the same degree. It might have to be might have to have a two efforts going on at the same time. The other thing I remember in Chevy Chase, they said that the civil engine, this business about getting the county to move and the problems of dealing with that and WSSC, I think, was also an issue for one of them. Is the civil engineer was really effective at networking, with the guys on the inside at the county and to move things along, to grease the wheels and get things going a little bit faster than they might have otherwise. So that was just, an added.
Well, once upon a time, one of my law firms did a lot of support of contractors, and everything got done through expediters and engineers and people who knew all the people that worked there.
Yeah.
So, and that's why what we were thinking about in terms of controlling the engineer costs is finding a way to share an engineer with a couple of villages, or do it on an hourly basis, but the developer would have to pay for our time as well as their own engineers' time. That's also the reason why we thought this kind of stormwater management stuff, once we get the criteria for a permit to be in place, the first burden is on the developer to present an independent engineer that confirms the compliance. Then the second step is for us to review, which it's always easier to do that than do it at the front end.
The other idea that was shared, at least during the meeting that we had with Chevy Chase View, is they're working really hard on encouraging citizens to do the right thing and developers to do the right thing. Because there are programs in place at the county that are really positive and helpful, like the Rainscape program. So rather than paving over something, you might want to, make a beautiful garden out of your front yard, and take advantage of a county program that provides a subsidy. So they've been promoting those programs and augmenting them. So providing an additional incentive for people to use the Rainscape program. And the great thing about that is then you have a county program that, you don't need to review because the county's reviewing it. You're just providing further incentive for people to use it once they're approved by the county. So I think that there's some other interesting ideas out there to look at. They in Chevy Chase View were also really talking about the efforts they're making really on a continual basis to reach out to residents, to educate them about, climate change, stormwater drainage, the impact on the environment. We know this is like an effort that we need to make on an ongoing basis so that people really understand, the impact of actions they're taking in their garden or their backyard, and how it impacts the neighbors. So they're really interested in teaming up with other municipalities on the educational effort. That might be something that we can look at as well. Maybe there's opportunity to bring the county out for, talks on a regular basis, and to do that in the town of Chevy Chase, where they have a big space that could welcome everyone. Do it together as different municipalities, and then lessen the burden that way on our community. So I think I bring that up because I think that, I don't want us to be limited, at least from my perspective. I don't think we can be limited just to think about ordinances, but I think we need to think about the bigger scope and all the different ways in which we can tackle these stormwater issues.
You're talking about a holistic approach.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense. Anybody else want to add something? I think we have a lot of good ideas floating here. I've taken a lot of notes. Anybody else has something to add to what we've been talking
that-
about, thinking about?
Just to complement what Yasmina was just saying, in my interview, I also was made aware that the Village of Somerset developed a guide to green infrastructure, and that was a very good report on, sort of how to do it. That's on the website. Well, it's probably on Somerset's website, but I put the link in the report to where it's located in the Chevy Chase Village website under the Stormwater Committee. They also linked to it, but they said they had used that for green infrastructure, that it was quite good. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel if we can find some good ideas there.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Well, this is a great meeting. I mean, we're starting to get to the other side, if you know what I mean. We've been collecting and surveying all this stuff. We're starting to think about the answers that we want to recommend. So, thank you all. Okay, so looks like we're going to be meeting. Our next meeting is going to be with Megan. But just before we wrap up, I do want to see if there's any of the residents that have anything that they want to add. Unless we warm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. I can't see that. Marty has her hand up. Marty, you want to say
Doug.
hello?
I want to say thank you. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes.
I just think this was a terrifically informative meeting, and I just am impressed. You impressed me right out of my socks. And thank you to Megan. Thank you to the council for supporting this. I see Alexa's here, and we've got Arthur as well. Thank you both. And kudos, bravo, more power to you. May the wind be at your back. I'm going to turn it over to Doug, I think, has his hand
Okay,
up
Doug
next.
Grove.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to echo what Marty said. I still have my socks on, but don't take that as a reflection of how impressed I was with the meeting. But thank you all really, truly for this, and especially for all the work that you're doing, obviously on a volunteer basis, and it benefits us all, and the expertise is incredible. So thank you. Just to Arthur's point about easy ideas for possible easy fixes in the ordinance, in addition to the percentage idea, is that one thing, as you all know, on the Cummings Lane project, where you had a single developer simultaneously developing 2 adjoining properties, there was nothing preventing them from converting the side setback area into completely non-permeable space. So the space between the 2 houses is an adjoining, it became just a driveway. And I think that was one of the issues, that had the side setbacks also included some provision for permeable space, something to prevent a developer from converting the entire side setback into paved, non-permeable space. It would have not only had a tremendous impact on water management, but it would have also resulted in a more or less a reconceptualization of the development plan in a way that would have addressed the problem, including, you know, the fix that we are in now with regulating lots, building size, but not the thing is that the ordinance, the code of ordinances now regulates building coverage, not lot coverage.
Right, right.
That's all. Thanks.
I think there was another resident. Did somebody say that?
Yeah, Hiromi, but I think Doug may have spoken for her.
Okay, so
Could I-
unless there's
could I
any
just say-
objection,
Could I
Go
just
ahead.
add
Yasmin.
something to, because I think Doug makes a really important point, and I know we've discussed this at meetings before, but that side setback issue is really important in terms of land disturbance, not only in terms of, you know, potentially putting a driveway in, but, you know, because we've seen this trend of the retaining walls being put in, you know, 6 feet down, and then roots of trees on adjacent properties being affected by the land disturbance. So I think that, you know, as we're looking at quick fixes, this is definitely an area that we need to incorporate into any language that we develop.
so we'll talk with Megan, but maybe we will actually come up with some very specific code recommendations for short term, long, and then longer term, along with everything else we're doing. Makes a lot of sense. All right. I don't think anybody wants to leave, but I think we're gonna call it. Somebody make a motion, please.
I move we adjourn.
I second
Thank you.
it.
Okay.
Okay, there we are.
Thank
All in
you,
favor?
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Arthur,
Art.
Okay.
for not only for like running this, but for finding us Jackie and for and
She
for
found
support
herself.
and for supporting us. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Good night. I'm
All right, night. Bye bye.
gonna send this off.
Okay.
Send this off to
Bye-bye.
Dreamland.